All right, well, welcome back. Section 3. We're talking about engagement this week in class. So, Sally, how do you engage and build an alliance with kids 3 to 18? I mean, they're developmentally so different. And not even every 12-year-old is developmentally the same.
No,
How,
by far
how,
not.
how do you engage and build that alliance?
I like to say that there are two magic words to engage a child: play and toys.
Yeah,
As a
absolutely.
play therapist, I just simply use the magic of childhood and play to engage them. And it's amazing that with some advanced training in how to assess play themes and um, behaviors and things like that, you can really interpret a lot from children's play. Also, if a child is safe in the playroom or in your office coloring or playing with some toys, they're much more likely to just kind of randomly, I've got something to share. This happened last week, or something's been bothering me. And just as we're coloring a picture or playing trains or Barbies or whatever it is, they'll just decide that they're ready to share something. And it just takes some time to build that safety and that rapport that you're a trusted person.
So, patience is important.
Absolutely.
Can you explain to the MSW student why patience is important? Because Rome wasn't built overnight, and relationships with clients aren't, especially clients who have serious trauma, is not built overnight.
It's just a matter of sitting with the person, sometimes sitting with the child and being there with them.
Yeah, presence.
Just presence means a lot. And I've worked with a child for almost a year before we were having a session together. She was 10 at the time. That all of a sudden I could just tell that a light bulb had clicked. And she asked me a personal question. I think it was a question something like, "Do you like the color pink?" Or just something like that. And I could just tell that I had won her over. It took that long, but I was her person.
Yeah.
Until then, it was great work, but it had
But
really opened up.
once you had that alliance sort of really
Building
entrenched
foundation.
with trust,
Yeah.
then the work turned at that point.
Yes.
It became a little different kind
Yes.
of work and more meaningful.
Absolutely.
Now, one thing that makes your work more complicated, and I know it and you know it, but I don't know that the student knows it, um, that's not the only engagement you have to make. You have to also engage parents who don't always see the kids through the same lens that you see them through. So, what's it like to engage a parent?
A lot of times I have to be patient because their frustration level is probably at max.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
they've been working with behaviors and tantrums and
And the most common thing that I know a social worker hears is, "I need you to fix my kid."
yes,
Well, that's not happening.
I don't have a magic wand.
Yeah. Yeah. And when they invent that, then I will be the first to buy 5 of them.
Yes.
So yeah, it requires patience and trying to understand their view of the world.
Yeah.
And their view may also be a traumatized view.
It often is. The generational trauma is a big component.
Have you seen a lot of kids who have high ACEs scores whose parents you suspect also have high ACEs scores? Is that a trend that you see pretty
Yes.
consistently?
Yes.
So, all right. So engagement is really just a key tool here for your practice.
Yeah, and I like to explain what I'm doing to parents too in the playroom or other therapeutic techniques, because a lot of times parents will come in and say, "Well, you just play with my child. They told me that all you did was played Barbies, and I don't get why I'm paying you." Not that they're paying. I don't understand why you're just playing Barbies with my child. You need to be talking about the trauma.
Right.
And they don't realize that the child has told me a lot about the trauma
While playing
while
with the Barbies.
playing. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's this really cool tool which combines play therapy, family engagement, and alliance building, that whole attachment thing, that TheraPlay. Is TheraPlay something that you're trained in?
Yes,
So
it
that's
is.
pretty cool.
It is. It's very wonderful because you're involving the parents the whole way through and teaching them how to use these techniques at home with their child on a regular basis. And I loved having that in my toolkit.
All right, perfect. Well, thank you, Sally. We'll go ahead and wrap up here, section 3. So, teach this foundation class, which practice 1 and 2. And the students are going to hear, aside from safety, which is always number 1, number 2, closely followed by safety, most important thing is forming that alliance with that client. You can't get anywhere if you don't have a working alliance, some rapport with a client. Hospice is unique because some clients, and I know we've talked about this, they haven't passed away, so they age out, or they rotate out of hospice because they're no longer eligible. So you might have them on service much longer than normal. And other clients start on a Wednesday and die by Friday, but you're still working with their loved ones. So talk a little bit about forming the alliance, because you have multiple clients when you have a family. Like the case example I gave in the ethics segment, you have the wife who is healthy, you have the husband who is dying. They're both your clients. One is going to perish, the other is not. So talk a little bit about forming that alliance.
Everything that I do is based on letting the family know that they are in control. And when I come in for the first time to meet them, I don't come in and say, this is what I'm going to do for you. I come in and go, tell me your story. And then I listen. And I listen to whatever it is they want to share with me every single time that I'm there, because that allows them to feel that they are in control of their lives and that they are supported. Sometimes we just rant and rave about whatever's going on that day. And other times we have long conversations about family dynamics and the struggles of losing their loved one. And other times we play board games, because that's just what brings them comfort. So I'm there to serve them. I'm there to do what helps them in whatever way that it works for them. And I don't ever try and push my agenda. Yes, we have to have hard conversations sometimes.
Right.
But
Like, leave your son's meds alone.
yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
that would be a
But
pretty
there's a
hard
way to
conversation.
do that without seeming like you're the one trying to tell them what to do. My whole foundation is based on client empowerment. And so I will come in with the ability to give them the resources and education and support that I can, but they're still in control to make their decisions. And that has really helped me to be successful in what I do and have many families feel like they can trust and rely on me to help them out.
Right. One of the things students are going to hear is that not only that client who's right in front of you is your client, but everybody on your team is your client, the nurses, the chaplains, assistants. And one of the things I know from us talking, you being on call, you would have to work with other teams because those social workers were off call. So coming in and working with a nurse or a group of nurses you don't normally work with, or a chaplain's aide who you only see in meetings but you're not really out in the field, what's that like, in maintaining that alliance with that sort of secondary level of client?
It can be a struggle, especially when you're working with other disciplines and they are used to how they do things or how their assigned team member does things. And so coming in with a different perspective, a different way of doing things can be hard for them. But I still maintain the same stance as I do with my families, is I'm going to listen. What do you need? What do you think I can do to help? And I want to hear what they need, and then I can tell them what I can do to help them out.
That sounds great. Any words of advice that you would give a student new to social work who's trying to figure out how to form that alliance?
Be willing to listen.
Be willing
Be
to
absolutely
listen.
willing to listen. That
Be
is the
patient.
key. Absolutely.
Tell me your story. I like that. So I may have to use that in class.
Go ahead.
So I'll quote you. This is from Ashley.
Appreciate it.
All right. All right, everybody, welcome back. I'm here with Jackie at Rosebrooks, and she's going to talk a little bit about engaging and building rapport and alliance with clients. As she shared in segment 1, whether you remember or not, because you're listening to a wide variety of social workers, she works with clients that are not in residence at Rosebrooks. She works with clients that are on the outpatient end, but building an alliance is still building an alliance. So what are your thoughts about building an alliance as a social worker? Why is that important to you, Jackie?
Oh, being able to build that rapport with a client is integral to the working relationship being a working relationship. I think again, back to that power differential between me as a social worker and them as a client, I have to recognize that, bring awareness to that, and immediately set those boundaries of what my role is and what the client's role is. And yes, there are expectations of the client within that working relationship, but they also have their rights, which I cannot work harder than they do, but I can help keep where they're at and maintain that assumption of positive intent that they are doing the best that they can in that moment. I also think that skills that are often used to build rapport with clients that I don't necessarily ever get to meet in person. So a lot of this is over the phone or brief interactions like in a court setting and things like that. So it's important to take advantage of those opportunities to maintain that rapport and keep it sustainable. So assuming positive intent, expressing empathy, active listening skills, believing their story. A lot of stories that I hear are unbelievable. They are traumatic, they are egregious, they are terrible, but they are true and they have happened to somebody, and that somebody is standing in front of me. And so I have to know that that is hard for them to share.
Right. One time I was on the stand in family court and I was testifying, and there was domestic violence, it was a child welfare case, the kids were in state custody, and the attorney for the juvenile officer asked me while I was on the stand, is mom continuing the relationship with dad? And I'm the mom's social worker. And I said, I believe she is not. She has reported that she is not. And I remember him saying to me, well, how do you know that that's true? And I remember looking right at him and saying, I'm not a detective. It's not my job to prove whether something is true or not.
Mm-hmm.
Clients and forming that alliance, I go with what they present.
Mm-hmm.
If their story changes week to week, then our alliance is changing. And I expect things to change, because why would they trust me the first 5 minutes they've met me?
Mm-hmm.
So it's okay that things change and things add and things grow, because that's what an alliance and that's what that relationship looks like. I'm not a detective. It's not my job to prove something is true or not true.
Mm-hmm.
That would be harmful to the alliance, because then the client would look at you and say, do you not trust me?
Yeah.
I trust them, given what they present from the get-go, and that's all part of how we form that alliance.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think it's interesting, when we did supervision together, we did supervision with one of her peers, and her peer was in a very different position, where she was seeing clients for a longer period of time, extended over weeks, and sometimes Jackie would have only one shot with a client, sometimes multiple shots, but sometimes only one shot. And that doesn't deter from the value of the alliance.
Oh yeah.
Whether it's one shot, it's a 5-minute discharge planning, or in your case, a 2-hour, crisis intervention,
Mm-hmm.
or in case of your peer, it was, they've seen someone weekly for 6 months. It's still the alliance.
Yeah, it may look different how it's formed, but I think the value in that and the impression that's left on a client for having connected with somebody it shows up time and time again, where I will get calls and they will reach out in the future because they remembered meeting me in court one day, and that's not a reflection on me being super awesome and having a great impression, but that's being present with the client. That's setting clear boundaries and expectations of, like, this is what I can do and this is how I can help, and that whether they are able to access that or take advantage of that in that moment or not, that they take that with them on their journey, and it might be pulled out later.
But I will make a side note, she actually is awesome, so there you go, she's got that, so. All right, well, thank you, class. Well, we're back with Erica, and we're just continuing along, and we're gonna talk a couple minutes here about engaging, forming alliances with clients. Because Erica has worked in so many different types of agencies, forming an alliance is something she's had to do And one of the things she may explain to you is that clients aren't just the person seeking services. It's literally everybody that you come in contact with. It's other discipline members, it's other team members. That engagement, I know there were times you were sharing with me when you were at Call Valley, your relationship with a kid would sometimes help de-escalate them. There was a kid I remember we staffed multiple times who was a big kid. He was over 6 feet tall, and he was so upset, and he was turning over planters and picnic tables, and you were able to use that alliance that you had with him. So tell my students why forming the alliance is so key.
I think the basis of social work is relationships. When you have a relationship and an alliance with someone, you're much more easily able to understand where they're coming from, but have them understand what you're trying to say as well. And so to engage somebody in forming that alliance or that relationship, finding common interests or asking questions about things they're interested in that maybe you don't care as much about, but you care about them, so you ask questions. The active listening skills are crucial. And also being able to just validate whatever they're feeling, wherever they're at, and showing interest in them as a person and where they've been helps to build trust within that relationship. So then when they do become escalated or frustrated or mad or whatever they might be feeling, I can use that relationship I have to say, hey, do you remember that time when we talked about this and we did this, or you shared this with me? This seems like another one of those moments. So what you did before didn't work. So I know that it's maybe not going to work this time. What can we try now? So having the knowledge and the history of that relationship to be able to use that to assist them and help them kind of think through their decisions and choices. It just helps in all aspects of trying to work with them through whatever agency you're with.
Can I ask you a tough question?
Sure.
A trick. It's not really. Maybe it's a trick question.
Okay.
It's not really a trick question.
Okay.
She'll get it right. So, when it comes to the client and their situation, who's the expert?
They are.
Yeah.
Always. They are always the expert. I know a lot and I have a lot of knowledge and I have a lot of experience, but I haven't lived their life or in their shoes. And so I always think also, if someone was helping me, what would I want? I wouldn't want them to come to me and tell me what to do. I would want to be able to lead that journey with maybe assistance, guidance, and support from somebody, but not telling me how to do or what to do, providing me all my options, and then letting me kind of choose and see how it goes.
Absolutely. See, I knew she would get that right. So
I had a good teacher.
She had a good teacher. Yeah.
I did.
All right. Thank you, Eric. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hey class, we're back with Michelle White, who's a social worker at Truman Hospital. I kind of forgot to ask you, where did you go to school?
I did both my bachelor's and master's at KU.
Okay, and this is for a KU Foundation class, so Rock Chalk Jayhawk. All right, so we're going to talk about engaging clients. Now, having been in child welfare and having worked with a child for 18 months, engaging and developing that rapport, I had plenty of time to do that. Sometimes you don't, I already know you don't have 18 months with a client. So what is that like for you as far as the necessity and the value of engaging and forming that alliance that isn't going to last 18 months?
So, a lot of times I'll look at when I do my chart review, I'll look for things that are mentioned in the chart, like, patient is a KU basketball fan, or, patient enjoys such and such a show, and then it's built. Sometimes it just takes building on that. Like, hey, I was looking at your chart. I see like KU basketball. Who's your favorite player? Building from there and building that rapport that, I'm not just someone who's here to look at you from a clinical perspective, medically. I don't just see you as a body. I see you as a person. So, just looking for commonalities, building on those. A lot of times with my non-English speaking patients, like my Spanish speaking patients, I at least make an attempt to greet them in Spanish, and means a lot. A little gesture can go a really long way.
I think that is really well described. and you're working currently in oncology.
Mm-hmm.
So you're working with people that are potentially facing life,
Right.
life-ending, life-threatening
Mhm.
situations.
Mhm.
Does that change the engagement at all?
Yes, I follow the same patients, so whenever they come in, I automatically follow them. So it gives me a little more time to build rapport, to build that relationship. Sometimes it's just I walk in there and they just need someone to vent to or to talk to, and I'll sit there and listen to them for 10, 15 minutes, and then they'll say, thanks for listening. I really needed to get that out, or that was really bothering me. Thank you for coming in. So just being there and being present can be a great way to build rapport.
So listening is a really huge engagement skill for
Mhm.
you.
Yes.
Just listening.
And picking up comments or things that you can file away to use at a later date. Is for for patient to build rapport.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Michelle.